Hello, my dears. So, Keira Knightley is the latest celebrity to essentially piss off trans activists.
I saw you're voicing Professor Umbridge in the new Harry Potter audiobooks. I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given JK Rowling's ongoing campaign against trans people?
I was not aware of that, no. I'm very sorry. I think we're all living in a period of time right now where we're all going to have to figure out how to live together, aren't we? And we've all got very different opinions. So I hope that we can all find respect.
Now, of course, anything other than her disavowing JK Rowling and pledging allegiance to trans activists who hate JK Rowling would have never really gone down smoothly, but it has been quite interesting to see how people have reacted to what she said, so I thought we could kind of get into some of these reactions because I do think some of them are pretty unhinged.
I need everyone to get back to 2020 levels of woke right the now. Because why is Keira Knightley a TERF? Why does she hate, if you are a British person, you understand the sorry, we all just gonna have to get along. She fucking hates trans people. I have never seen such patronizing. Just watch the clip.
I think it's a bit of a stretch to say she hates trans people. That's literally not what she said. But also on top of that, I think she was saying sorry to the fact that she didn't know anything about the boycotting drama that the journalist was talking about, which is fair enough because not everybody is chronically on the internet, so she might genuinely not have known anything about it, and she was probably just saying sorry, no, I don't really know anything about that. I don't know, I didn't get the impression that she hates trans people, but I did get the impression that she just doesn't care about this drama. She doesn't care about the boycotting scandal that was raised to her. She just is not, and she's also probably not that interested in the whole JK Rowling and versus trans activist situation. I don't think she's that invested in it. But there is this kind of slightly narcissistic perspective that everyone has to care about the thing that you care about because obviously it's the most important thing in the world because you care about it, even though you yourself don't care about every single issue going on. I don't agree with her perspective of we have to just agree to disagree because I don't think this is one of those issues where you can just agree to disagree because there's quite a big conflict between the two sides of this debate. So I don't think it is possible to agree to disagree. But that being said, I think the reason why she specifically said that is because she's just not interested in this debate or conversation. And fair enough.
As the pendulum swung so far right that you can't even muster I stand by the LGBTQ plus community. I stand by the queer community. I'm always open to anything.
What does it even mean to stand by that community? What does that mean? Because it's possible for you to not hate gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans people, whatever, without necessarily agreeing with all of the stuff that the activists are trying to push for. So when you say she should say she stands, what does that even mean to say you stand by them? Because there are plenty of people who have no issues with gays, lesbians, bisexuals, or trans people, yet they don't support all of the stuff that you probably would want them to support. And then someone might say, well, then they don't really stand with them then, do they? Because if they did, then they would support these issues. But not all trans people even support trans activists. So what are we even talking about? Not everybody agrees on what you define as their rights or things that they should be allowed to do.
It's not a case of respecting opinions when one person is actively funding anti-trans legislation, actively campaigning to have laws that make existing harder, that mean people are contemplating that's not we just have to get along, as if she's talking to us like we're primary school children. Just be nice to JK and then she'll stop funding laws that make your life harder. Are you serious?
It's all a matter of perspective though, really, isn't it? Because some people view what JK Rowling is doing as deliberately working to make the lives of trans people harder, yet some people view what she's doing as her working to preserve and maintain women's sex-based rights.
So I don't know if y'all have seen this interview with Keira Knightley, who's in the new HBO Harry Potter reboot, and the interviewer asks her, how do you feel about people calling to boycott JK Rowling because she's, the worst person ever? And Keira Knightley, laughs in the interviewer's face and goes, I'm so sorry, I think we all need to learn how to, play nicely, even if we have different beliefs, which is, a bunch of baloney. I tweeted about it because I was screw you, screw that ideology. Tolerating the intolerant is never going to be the answer.
I don't think anyone who agrees with trans activists is tolerant. I don't think you can tolerate them. They won't allow you to, because these are people who've made it very, very clear that there is only one thing that they will accept, and that is complete and utter agreement to everything that they want, and there's no in between. Because I did see in the beginning of this whole debate where some women were trying to compromise and be okay, how about we accept your new identity, but rather than just treating you as if you're exactly the same as biological women, how about you have your own separate category? How about you have your own separate sports category? How about we advocate for you to have your own restrooms, etc.? That didn't go down too well. I mean, there was a sporting body that tried to create a trans only sporting category. No one turned up, no one signed up for it. They weren't interested in it. And even Leah Thomas has even said, that there is no middle ground. You either 100% accept them, and by accepting them, they mean like treating them as if they are literally the sex that they are identifying as.
The women who signed the letter anonymously said that they absolutely supported your right to transition, but they simply think it's unfair for you to compete against cisgendered women.
You can't go halfway and be like, I support trans women and trans people, but only to a certain point, where if you support trans women as women and they've met all the NCA requirements, and then I don't know if you can really say something like that. A
lot of people have changed their minds on how they feel about this, and they've decided, well, if you're only going to give me the option of 100% compliance to what you want or nothing, then I'm gonna go with nothing.
I want to know, for someone like Keira Knightley, who I don't think is like a raging bigot. I think this is just a person who doesn't want to be criticized. But the reality is, when you align yourself with someone like JK Rowling, you're aligning yourself with her followers. And her followers are no longer just like Harry Potter fans. It's people who are turning you into reaction meme and using slurs and being racist and misogynistic and homophobic and like everything under the sun, in addition to transphobic in the comments. And also like transvestigating you for some reason, because that's like the only thing they know how to do. So I want to know if Keira and other similar celebrities with the same ideology are comfortable with having these people in your corner, because you've lost my respect. You've lost the respect of your audience who believes that trans rights are human rights. And I think that your choices now are either to stay completely silent on any given issue, or your future gigs are going to be giving Turning Point halftime show.
I think Keira Knightley is going to be just fine, even if people who are mad at what she's saying decide to stop supporting her. I think she's going to be just fine. The idea that she can never speak on any issue again now just because she didn't speak on this one is absolutely ridiculous, because like I said, not everybody cares about the exact same issues. Different people are passionate about different issues. There are a ton of things going on in the world right now that none of you are talking about because you don't care, and that's fine, because you don't have to care about everything. But yeah, to say like, oh, she can't speak on anything now in the future because she didn't speak on this is ridiculous. She absolutely can, and she doesn't have to care about this if she doesn't care about this.
If there's something that I hate, is a lazy liar.
I saw you're voicing Professor Umbridge in the new Harry Potter audiobooks. I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given JK Rowling's ongoing campaign against trans people?
I was not aware of that, no.
Really? So we have a transphobic prime minister that, when challenged by JK Rowling on his views of women,
Keir Starmer is now known as being transphobic.
Does someone who thinks only women have a cervix is welcome in the Labour Party?
But look, Andrew, we need to have a mature, respectful debate about trans rights. And we need to, I think, bear in mind that the trans community are amongst, the most marginalised and abused communities. And wherever we've got to on the law, we need to go further. And we want to go further on that. But whatever the debate is, it needs to be a tolerant debate. And I am absolutely sure that our conference will be a place which is safe for that debate to take place. And it is.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right, but...
Like, he's now what we consider to be transphobic. That's interesting.
we have a transphobic Minister of Education and of Equalities that, during the campaign, sent a message specifically to address the concerns of JK Rowling. We have a transphobic Health Secretary that banned puberty blockers for trans people.
Children. Banned puberty blockers for minors, because the research, which I've spoken about before in a previous video, longitudinal studies found that most of them outgrew their gender dysphoria, and often, most of the time, also grew up to just be gay or lesbian. And then the NHS also found themselves that this was what they described as a transient phase, meaning that the vast majority of children would grow out of their gender dysphoria. And so because of that, the UK government decided to stop giving puberty blockers to minors, because they felt like it would be more responsible to practice watchful waiting, which is what they used to do anyway before people started giving drugs to children. Because if most of them were able to outgrow their gender dysphoria and actually found that actually they were just gay or just lesbian, then it would seem quite unethical to intervene with that and start giving them drugs and stuff that they might not necessarily need. And also I just find it really strange how the same people who claim to care so much about gay and lesbian rights are perfectly fine with us meddling with children who are most likely just going to turn out to be gay and lesbian, which to me has always seemed to be very deeply homophobic, but I guess we're not supposed to notice that.
That during the Labour campaign said that we mustn't shut down debate with JK Rowling regarding trans issues. We have had obsessive, psychotic coverage of every single thing that this 0.5% of the population does and does not do. Specifically about the opinions of a private individual that decided to spend all of her influence, social capital, and a lot of her capital in funding ways of making the lives of trans people harder.
This is so one-sided. It's not like if trans activists succeed in getting what they want, everything is going to be hunky-dory, no one's going to be impacted or affected. There is literally no trade-offs to them succeeding. This will have an impact on sex-based rights for everybody, because if you're redefining sex, then that has a big impact on how we structure our laws, how we structure our safe spaces, how we structure so many different things. And it also has a big impact on sexuality, which is why you'll find a lot of lesbians and gays have actually been very supportive of the people who these guys would describe as TERFs. If you're changing what it means to be a man and a woman, you're also changing what it means to be gay and lesbian. So yes, making all of these changes and accommodations would change so many things, and it would affect other people's rights. And that's the reason why this whole thing was even a debate to begin with, and why it was so complicated.
Which is what the disagreement when it comes to trans rights is. Specifically when the Equality and Human Rights Committee, which is an organization in the UK that has been absolutely captured by the anti-trans lobby, is trying to roll out a guidance that through cutting the access that trans people have to bathrooms would stop them from being a part of public life. Something that has been endorsed and bankrolled by JK Rowling.
It's not that they're not allowed to use bathrooms, it's that they're not allowed to self-ID into the bathroom that they want to go into. There's also the disabled toilets that they could possibly use. Also, this idea that every single person who identifies as trans is just a genuine, sweet, innocent person who just struggles with gender dysphoria and is just trying to find a way to cope with it. There are people like that, fine. But there are also autogynephiles and a very large portion of fetishistic cross-dressers who for some reason after the trans movement we just seem to stop talking about. But there are those men who don't really have gender dysphoria. They just get a sexual kick out of dressing like women and acting like women and doing things that are stereotypically associated with women. And by us accommodating this stuff and allowing people like that in our spaces, we are being forced to non-consensually partake in a sexual kink that we don't want to be a part of. And I don't think anybody should be made to do that.
Those are the different categories, but they're all called transgender. And the problem is, apart from the transvestites is the majority, the others are tiny. And so when you're talking about the Supreme Court judgment where, I'm sorry, if you're biological male, you shouldn't be going to the women's toilets, the very small number of transsexuals probably aren't that fussed because they probably just go to the disabled toilets anyway. Mm. The ones who really get off on being in women's spaces are the fetishistic transvestites. So if you think about the unhelpful umbrella term transgender, 97% of trans-identifying females, as in people who want to be females, have a penis. So, you know, they don't want to get rid of their penis. They just want to dress up as being a woman and get off on it. And they're the ones that are most annoyed about losing out on getting in these women's spaces. If you look on Twitter, there's always videos of, look, I'm in the ladies. Look, and, you know, women don't get excited about going to the ladies. No. It's people who get off on getting in those spaces that now they feel robbed of that. I mean, you know, if nobody cares about going to the disabled toilets, It's just call it disabled / unisex / whatever. It's just the third space. So just have a third space toilet they can go into.
It would be nice to pretend that all trans people are like, say, Blair White or Alexis Blake or whatever, but that's just not the case. There are some people who do it for very, very perverted reasons, and women shouldn't be forced to tolerate that in the name of inclusivity and kindness. So this whole lie that they're not allowed to use bathrooms is not true. They are. They're just not allowed to self-ID anymore into whichever bathroom they please. And I've also said this before, like, why is there so much emphasis on women allowing them to come into their spaces as opposed to more emphasis on men being more accommodating? Because I've heard a lot of men actively say, look, I would rather you come into the men's bathroom than you go into the bathroom with my daughter or my wife. So, like, I think this whole idea that they're not going to be safe and stuff, why is no one challenging that? As opposed to just being like, okay, women, you have to kind of deal with it. Self-ID made it easier for not the best kind of men to have access to women through this loophole. And that's not to say that all trans people are sexual predators or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the people who are predators were absolutely using and would use this as a loophole, which is why it had to be addressed. But there's like no sympathy for that reality at all. In fact, they just kind of pretend it doesn't exist, even though there's like plenty of reports and plenty of examples that you can literally just Google and research for yourself where women have been subject to abuse or even like full on RAPE because of these kind of loopholes. So, but they just don't care about that. They just pretend it doesn't exist. And they just pretend that all of this is just purely targeted by bigotry and not the fact that actual women were getting hurt because of this stuff.
I think we're all living in a period of time right now where we're all going to have to figure out how to live together, aren't we? And we've all got very different opinions. So I hope that we can all find respect.
Hi, yeah, back to me again. Transphobia isn't a difference of opinion. Bigotry isn't a difference of opinion when it's an existential threat to the people that bigotry is targeted towards. Here, it's an existential threat to the trans people who are facing segregation in the UK because of the very author that you signed up to help enrich. Now, I get that she's already insanely rich, but to sign up on projects to keep the franchise relevant, despite the fact that this was her 3 years ago, where she bragged about the fact that she sleeps well at night, given that all of you keep buying into the franchise and celebrities like Keira keep supporting it. This isn't just a difference of opinion. A difference of opinion doesn't result in people dying, doesn't result in people getting murdered or put in jail for being trans.
Who's getting murdered or put in jail for being trans? So I had to look into this before I start talking, just in case like there's some truth to the claims being made here. But all I could find is that in the space of 9 years, they found that 9 trans people have been murdered. But they weren't necessarily murdered for being trans. The way that this person is talking about it kind of implies that they were murdered for being trans, implying that it was like a hate crime. I couldn't find any evidence that supports the idea that trans people are disproportionately murdered because of hate crimes, or that hate crimes are the main motivation for murdering them. But what I could find is that when a trans person is murdered, most of the time they are murdered either by a romantic partner or they are murdered by a client. There are a lot of trans people who work in the sex industry, they work as sex workers, and as a result of that, like any sex worker, really, you're just at a higher risk of encountering unsavory characters. Also couldn't find anything about anyone being jailed for being trans, although I did find some examples of men who had committed sex crimes against women suddenly identifying as trans. So I could find examples of that, but I couldn't find any examples of anyone being put in prison or being jailed for being trans. I'm pretty sure that is against the law.
A difference of opinion is I prefer hot dogs to pizza, and we disagree, but it doesn't end up with one of them going, the hot dog lover should be shot. Now I'm exaggerating to illustrate a point, but it does result in people dying. Because when this difference of opinion results in people not getting access to proper medical care, not being able to work a regular job, being attacked and housed in the wrong places, just because of who you are, it's not just a difference of opinion. It has real world harm.
You can't be denied of a job, you can't be denied of housing, you can't be denied of all of the things that they're claiming people are being denied of because they're trans, because we do have an Equality Act over here in Britain, and it does deliberately prevent this from happening to trans people.
The Equality Act 2010 protects you from being discriminated against, harassed or victimised on the basis of a protected characteristic. There are 9 protected characteristics set out in the Equality Act, and gender reassignment is one of these. Videos covering the others can be found elsewhere in this series. In the Equality Act, we call this protected characteristic gender reassignment, but you might hear or prefer other terms such as transsexual, transgender, transmale, or transfemale.
You cannot deny a trans person a job or deny them housing or kick them out of a house or a home or whatever purely because of the fact that they're trans, because there is a specific clause within our Equality Act that protects those who identify as trans. It's seen as a protected characteristic. The only law that they could argue is discrimination is the fact that there's a law that makes it so that biological sexes have to be separated in specific contexts, like bathrooms, for example. But it's not specific to them because they're trans. It's just specific to them because of their biological sex.
And honestly, the reporting didn't do it justice, because seeing the words, I can dismiss very easily as some other privileged white woman who doesn't care about political issues. But this laugh at something so serious? Really? To me, this shows someone who most likely knew about JK Rowling's bigotry, but either she agrees with it or she doesn't care, which doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you are helping her. That laugh and the condescension is atrocious, because that condescension and that dismissiveness about something that is absolutely this horrible, we are talking about trans people being segregated against, about trans children being murdered, and you laugh it off like it's some ridiculous thing.
Trans children being murdered. Re-recording this because I completely butchered the pronunciation of Brianna's surname. But yeah, the only case I could find in the UK was Brianna Ghey, who was a 16-year-old teenager who was murdered by 2 other teenagers. And I just had a quick browse into that story, into that case, because I wanted to know was it a case of being murdered for being trans, or is it more of the case that they were murdered and they happen to be trans? Because obviously there is a difference. It seems that in this particular case, when they looked at the 2 teenagers who murdered Brianna, and they were going through all the evidence in terms of the correspondence between the 2 of them, their text messages, most of their conversation was very heavily centered around very sadistic fantasies. Like, they had these weird dark fantasies about torturing and killing. Like the girl in particular, she seemed to be the one that was like really into that dark death stuff. She was looking at weird ways to torture and kill people on the dark web and stuff. So it seems like they were just like a weird twosome who had some really dark fantasies about torture and murder. Brianna just unfortunately happened to be the one that they decided to go with in the end. But they didn't find a whole bunch of like transphobic comments or whatever. They even addressed Brianna as she, as they were talking about Brianna. I don't know, I could be wrong, but like, I don't think transphobic people really respect pronouns.
To me, this whole thing just shows someone who knows what's going on, because it's nearly impossible to not know what JK Rowling is doing in the UK. If you were somewhere else in the world, maybe. But in the UK, right now, in 2025, when she has been one of the main funders of this bigotry, of this segregation in the UK, it's impossible for her to not know about this. And this gives massive TERF energy, and it is despicable.
So that's basically the gist of what's happening with Keira Knightley and how she angered the trans activist and the trans activist ally brigade. Do let me know what you think. Do you think that Keira Knightley's response was really that bad? Do you think that people are overreacting? Or are you just kind of like Keira Knightley probably is, just kind of sick of this whole entire topic altogether? Either way, let me know in the comments. If you thought this video was interesting, you may as well like and subscribe. Thank you so much for giving me your time today. I will see you in my next video.